We're going to welcome on one of the best guys to talk about it in the business on the Fan Hotline. You know him from The Fan in New York, the morning show, Boomer and Geo. You know him as an NFL analyst as well. The great Boomer Esiason joins us now. Welcome to the show, Boomer.
Hey, Nick and Jonathan, thanks for having me on.
We only got a pick swap. You guys got a bevy of draft picks. Did you like yesterday's sell-off?
I did, and I think it's exactly what the Jets needed to do. They're in I would say they're in a complete rebuild mode, and it started with this year's draft. And they did draft very well in this year's draft, and they have two offensive tackles that they've drafted over the last 2 years that are going to be the foundation of this team moving forward. So they're moving in the right direction. Now the hard part starts, picking the right players with all those draft picks and maybe trading again and moving up, or trading back and getting more assets. And what they really need, and what Cleveland has needed for the longest time, they both need the quarterback that the fans, that the team, and the players that they play with can believe in, much like I think what the New York Giants have with Jackson Dart right now, even though their record doesn't indicate that.
It's interesting that it was perceived as positive then, and I think across the NFL it was perceived as positive, but anytime we here in Cleveland brought up, trading Myles Garrett, trading Denzel Ward, trading some of our star pieces, it was met with a lot of, well, maybe that's not the greatest idea.
Yeah, I know, and it's really interesting because the Jets have gone through another coaching and GM change here. The reason I liked it is because of the way that the contracts for both Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner were built, and they were built as if, we didn't win by the middle of the year, we're probably going to move on and start making some changes. And Indianapolis now assumes all of this guaranteed money that they had back-ended into this Sauce Gardner contract, which was actually mastery by GM Darren Muji, I think. And the fact is they have all this cap space on top of receiving a wide receiver in A.D. Mitchell and also those two first-round draft picks. And then, of course, this trade with the Cowboys just blew me away, and I couldn't believe that the Cowboys were this desperate to do what they did to acquire Quinnen Williams, who, by the way, for probably the last 5 months has been asking for a trade anyway. So those players have to be happy with where they're going. The Jets did the right thing. I don't know why the Browns didn't do this. I actually thought last year the Browns would entertain trading Myles Garrett. I mean, because he is worth a haul, and anybody would love to have a player of that caliber. So I feel like they're stuck in neutral. I feel like they've been stuck in neutral, and I'm not really sure how they're going to get themselves out of this.
Boomer, Darren Muji said that the goal is still to win despite the moves. Do you believe him?
I do. I mean, as a player who's played on bad teams, you go out there and you play, you're not thinking about next year's draft. And, they're going to play the players that they have left on this squad. And quite frankly, their offense played great the last time they were out. I was at the Bengal game 2 weeks ago. They looked great, and Breece Hall was amazing. And they did all of this without Garrett Wilson. So, they still have a quality offensive line. And whether it's Justin Fields, who I think it will be this week, or Tyrod Taylor, they're okay at quarterback. They're not great, and that's why they'll be looking for a quarterback at the top of the draft next year. But, we all talk about tanking and try to get to the top. I don't know if there's a clear number one right now as we sit here. So to think maybe that the front office is tanking, I find that hard to believe. I think it's such a competitive league that everybody wants to win. Nobody wants to stand in front of the press. When you lose, it's just no fun, and the morale sucks. And I would imagine for the Jets today, when they convene for practice, they're probably going to feel terrible because they lost two of their great teammates. But necessarily it had to be done by the GM, no question.
So it's interesting you say that, because these kind of moves, even in a sell-off, go one of two ways. Either they completely deflate the Jets for that next game, or somehow it whips around and motivates them. Browns fan here asking, is this more likely to deflate the Jets on Sunday or motivate them?
I feel like deflate. My sense is, unless they give somebody contract extensions before the game comes, but you got guys like two of their best players, Jermaine Johnson, who's going into his fifth year. They picked up the option, and of course Breece Hall, their very talented running back, who really wanted to be traded. I think they have a pretty strict social media policy at the Jets, which I really do appreciate. But there are a couple things that had leaked out over the last few weeks by Breece Hall, and you're sitting there. And you're playing one of the most difficult, physically demanding positions in all of sports at running back, and you're the team's best player right now, the biggest option on offense. How do you feel going out there knowing that you're not going to the playoffs, that the team actually did sell off two of your buddies and two very good football players. Where is your mind at? And I would wonder about that. So I don't think the team is going to be jumping off the mat, getting ready to play this game. I think they have a lot of mental hurdles that they got to get over the next 4 or 5 days.
Boomer, you'd mentioned you thought Justin Fields would be the starting quarterback this week for the Jets. Denzel Ward earlier today said he's preparing for both Fields and Tyrod Taylor. Is it that much of a question mark? Is it going to be Fields, or is that really kind of we'll see what happens, and by Friday they might come out and say it's Tyrod Taylor?
Yeah, I don't know why Aaron Glenn decides to play these games, but, this is like Jacoby Brissett and Kyler Murray in Arizona. So Arizona's decided, Jacoby Brissett is playing great, and all of a sudden Marvin Harrison Jr. is showing out to be a really great weapon that they were hoping to see with Kyler Murray, and it hasn't happened. Now they're blaming injury, and I don't believe that. I believe it's the play of Jacoby Brissett that's keeping him on the field and the happiness of the players that are playing with him. I would also say the same thing here in New York. Tyrod Taylor is somebody that commands respect in the locker room. They all love the guy. They all love playing with him. He knows how to call plays, gets everybody into the right situation, but he tends to get hurt. And that's something that the coaches know, and they can't count on continually from him week in and week out. They gave $30 million guaranteed to Justin Fields. He just came off of his best game against the Bengals. That's why I think it's going to be Justin. That's why I think it's going to be the guy that moves around and makes plays with his legs. So, yeah, two completely different quarterbacks. And if I were Cleveland, I would be more worried about playing against the fleet-footed Justin Fields than I would be about the statuesque Tyrod Taylor.
Boomer Esiason, WFAN in New York, and of course, a longtime NFL analyst on the Fan Hotline. So because you are not just the king of New York in the mornings there on WFAN, but you've also had this great vantage point of the NFL as well. If we look to the Browns and Jets, two of the purveyors of misery in the last 25 years in the NFL, which organization do you see is held in higher regard around the league?
Oh, man, that's a hard question to answer.
Sophie's choice. Didn't we give that to you?
Yeah, it all depends on what fan base you're listening to, I guess. If I listen to the Browns, then they're going to kill their owners, and they're going to kill the way that they do things. If I listen to the Jet fans, they just are merciless when it comes to, being a Jet fan and the misery. I would think that they're up there. Let's put it this way. They're up there, and until they get their quarterback of the future, whoever that may be, they're going to remain up there because we all know it's a quarterback-driven league. And even the Bengals get it right every now and again, and when they do, they usually win, and they look pretty good doing it. But quite frankly, the quarterback position for both the Browns and the Jets, when it comes to long-term solutions, I think the Browns had their guy. Their guy was Baker Mayfield, and why they let him go to this day, I still have no answer for that.
What do you see when you see the quarterbacks that we're talking about daily now at this point? Dillon Gabriel off to a rough start of his career, and then Shedeur Sanders, who we're yet to see even play a game, Boomer.
Yeah, I don't even like to talk about third-string quarterbacks, and there's more buzz around him than anybody I can ever remember. And
he's a backup now,
why,
Boomer. It's okay.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but is his back okay? Is it not okay? Does he want to play? Doesn't he want to play? I mean, it's ridiculous. So, let's wait until we see him play. But the one thing I'll say about Dillon Gabriel, obviously he reminds me of Tua Tagovailoa. I just don't know if these guys are big enough, really. Honestly, with the size and speed, and when you think about 6-foot quarterbacks, maybe he's a little bit taller than that. And I know that they've always played, and Kyler Murray has played, and they've gotten used to playing at their height, and they're where they are because they were able to overcome that part of it, and that's how smart and that's how good their arms are. But in this league, if you're not 6'2" to 6'6", playing quarterback is almost impossible. I don't know how they do it, really, and quite frankly, I really worry about guys that are 6'1" or less when it comes to overall success and long-term growth in this league. And that's why, to me, a quarterback's got to be between like 6'2" and 6'5". They got to be able to move around a little bit, but they also have to be able to decipher and look around and make plays. That's what Josh Allen does. And quite frankly, when you think of the smaller quarterbacks that have had success in this league, like Drew Brees or Michael Vick, they were different players. There were different types of people. So, and they were playing in a different league back then than the guys are playing now. So it's hard for me to actually get a sense of how good Dillon can be. I know he was great in college in Oregon, and I love the fact that he's a lefty. I just don't know if he's big enough.
I'm legitimately 6'4". If he's 6 feet tall, I'm 7 feet tall. That is my official read on Dillon Gabriel.
He's like easily 5'7".
We call him Timu Tua here in Cleveland, or at least
wow. Yeah, so that's even more alarming when I hear that, because the league is just it's too fast, it's too big, and it's too sudden. And it's one of the reasons why a guy like Jackson Dart is so much more athletic than I ever thought he was. And watching him run the Giant offense, and he is all the Giants are right now, and he really does have all of the intangibles. And the physical ability is there as well. I feel bad for Dillon. I feel bad for Tua. I feel bad for Kyler Murray. They've made it this far, so they obviously have some athleticism and they have some ability to play the position at a high level, and will have games where we could say, wow, look at that. But can they do it over a 17-game season? And I am not a big believer in the shorter quarterback.
Should the Browns keep Kevin Stefanski for next year?
So I am a fan of Kevin. I think if he does get fired, I think back to draft day. Okay, they got Dillon Gabriel in the third round, and then obviously we're all sitting there wondering what's going on with Shedeur. And then when the Browns take Shedeur Sanders, and I kind of looked at his face, and I know Kevin a little bit. I don't know enough to interpret all facial expressions, but I think we all are human beings, and we see that face and that look, and it didn't look like he was very happy about all of this, and because it creates distraction and it creates conversation, I guess, which is great for those of us who work in our world, but for the coach who wants to keep everything in-house, wants to keep things tight, and now all of a sudden you have all these outside influences coming in and distracting your football team, it never works. So I would probably say I would lean towards they're probably going to move away. I would just say, just by the longevity of losing, the decisions that have been made, and some of them have not been his fault, but I don't know how. I don't know how they would bring him back along. Like, that's the same thing I'm saying right now about Brian Daboll in New York. I feel the same way. Too much losing, too much change, and the fan base will speak loudly, and so will the sponsors, and that's when the owner will end up pulling the plugs on these coaches.
Boomer, I heard you guys talk about it on your show today. Tom Brady cloned his old dog. Does this count as a positive or negative for your estimation of Tom Brady the person?
Knowing Tom Brady and covering him all these years, I think he's a great guy. But the new hair, the dog, the whole thing, it's just a little bit much for me. So, but then again, his financial stratosphere is put you into places where none of us will ever be able to get to. So I would imagine that he's just playing along with everybody else at that level.
You'd think if you're going to clone anything, right? It's the same version of what you used to have, just a different, thing. Why not clone Giselle, right?
Well, maybe he doesn't like Giselle, or maybe he had a bad time there at the end. I don't know. So I'd be very careful about saying things like that. But I will say this: we talked about it, and in all seriousness, think about it. If you've had a dog in your life, just think about this for a second. You've had a dog in your life, and that dog's been with you, say, for 14 or 15 years. And I've had a number of dogs in my life that have lived that long. And I've had a couple of dogs that I've had to take to the vet, and I've had to put down that vet. I put down that dog with the vet, and I'm in that room, not the vet. I'm in the room, and I'm crying like a baby. I actually cried more at these dogs leaving my life than I did at some funerals of close friends of mine. That's the attachment that I don't think Tom Brady can get back with a clone dog. But then you'd have to ask him. I have no idea.
I just think it'd be very psychologically confusing as a man who's been in the same spot you have with multiple dogs as well. Boomer, you've been very generous with your time. We appreciate you very much. Thank you for hanging out.
All right, guys. Thanks. Have a great day. See you, boys.
Boomer Esiason of WFAN in New York, NFL analyst as well, on the Fan Hotline.